Hello. Hi. Hi there. Yeah, I think we're waiting for people to come in. I think we're 15 minutes early. Yeah, I can't hear you. If you say anything. Yeah, your mic is on.
Hi, everybody. My name is Mare. I'm the Executive Director of Land of Medicine Buddha. I just wanted to welcome you. It doesn't look like Venerable Robina is here yet. She'll probably be here any minute. Thanks for coming. Thanks for making offerings to help us keep these kind of online programs going. We all appreciate it here. Oh, Venerable Robina, welcome. Spiritual program coordinator. Roland, will you say hi so people can see who you are?
Hi, everyone.
That's Roland. So he's available. If you're having any technical difficulties, you can use that chat at the bottom and message him privately or publicly, whatever, and he'll try to help you. So I am just going to say thank you, Venerable Robina, for being here with us. And I'm going to mute myself. Thanks a lot.
So who's going to start? Me. Is that the plan? You're not going to introduce me? Maybe there's some strangers and we haven't met.
I'm sorry. I was introducing you as you came on.
Okay, fine. So
I come on a few minutes early.
Happy to meet you all. Everybody, Marielle, Diraj, Peggy, Betty, Jimena, Leslie, Sam, Jessica, everybody, look at you. Happy to see you all. Okay, I forget my title. What are we talking about today? I'm not being silly.
Bodhichitta in Action, Venerable Robina.
What's it called?
Bodhichitta in Action.
Bodhichitta in Action. That's pretty too high, I think, for me. We'll have to keep it lower, but we'll see how we go. We'll describe it, okay? So we always, as we begin, just to sort of put ourselves in the right direction, let's, as the Lamas would say, state our motivation, as we might say, state our purpose. So why are we here together this hour or two? You know, let's just state our purpose. And of course, like anything, the clearer your purpose, the more likely you are to do it, you know. If you walk outside and go, I might go for a walk, you won't move an inch until you decide where you're going. So it's like the same here. So where are we going? What's this 2 hours? Well, we're going to listen to, we'll talk about this idea of bodhicitta, this whole idea of love, compassion, and this outrageous attitude of a bodhisattva we'll talk about. So why are we discussing this? Well, it's our potential, Buddha says. We've got this amazing potential to have empathy for others, you know. So we want to try and see how we can describe, how we can cultivate that. That's why we're here tonight. We'll think this way. So why? Because it's for us, also for our sake. Don't forget our sake, but for the sake of others, because we live in this crazy world together. So we'll just sing our little prayer in Tibetan. The second two lines express this idea, our motivation, our goal. But the first two lines can be for all of us who already feel they are already Buddhist. If we identify with being a Buddhist, it's reminding us of our reliance on the Buddha and his teachings, you know, the first two lines. So if you know this prayer, we haven't got it, have we, Roland? You haven't got it on the screen. We can put it up for people in case they want to join in.
We don't have it on the screen. No, sorry, Venerable Robina.
We can find it quickly now. Perhaps the next time. Okay, so keep it for the rest of the times. To have the prayer, the beginning prayers, and then the dedication at the end. Be nice to have. I should have said it before. But that's not. So I'll just sing it and you think these thoughts just in your own mind as I sing this little prayer in Tibetan. Sangye charang zoke chognam la jancho baru dagni kyab suchi dagi chonyen gipe sonam ki drola penche sangye drupa shog sangye charang zoke chognam la jancho baru dagni kyab suchi dagi chonyen gipe sonam ki drola penche sangye drupa shog Sangye charang soke chognam la jangcho baru dagni kyab suchi dagi chernyen gipe sonam ki drola penche sangye drupasho. Well, this bodhicitta, I mean, I know you know, first of all, it's a Sanskrit word. I mean, you know, we can see with most of Buddhism, we can use English words. We don't need to use any foreign words whatsoever. I mean, we'll say the word karma maybe because it's just so, you know, but we can say, and we say the word bodhicitta because I think when you say the meaning, the technical meaning, awakening thought, like God, who cares, you know? So somehow whatever, it seems to stay in the Sanskrit. So what does it mean? I mean, it's really crucial to understand these words. And I think sometimes what might be surprising to us is, especially in a spiritual path, we don't often think that we need to get the terms defined clearly, but it's really important. It's really crucial, actually. I mean, we tend to think we know you've got to be clear. If you're going to bake a cake, you better know the difference between a teaspoon or a tablespoon, otherwise you won't get the cake. We kind of get that, you know. We understand precision when it comes to growing a garden and making a cake. We don't often think that way with spiritual, but the Buddhist approach is very precise. We need to know. And why, one good reason first to start with, just to remind us, and it's indicated, this approach in Buddhism is it's showing us this approach when we look at the word Buddha. This is the end result of all this practice of being a Buddhist. If you're a Buddhist, if you're a Mahayana Buddhist, the end result is you're going to become a Buddha. You're kind of going to follow this path and you'll graduate as a Buddha, you know. So, and this is really important to help them understand the word bodhicitta, Buddha, Bodhi, they're coming from the same source. So the meaning, the etymology of this word is so powerful. It tells us everything. And this is giving us the reason why precision and clarity in terms of understanding the words is so important. So the Buddha is saying this is our end result. The Buddha is saying this is the potential of every living being just naturally. It's just the way it is, you know, no one makes it that way. So what this potential is expressed by this word very perfectly. Bud implies the total eradication from our being, from our mind, from our consciousness of all fear, anger, jealousy, depression, anxiety, low self-esteem, you name it, the stuff that we are super familiar with, which is quite surprising, quite a shocking idea. But Buddha has found this to be so because he's done the job himself and he presents his methodology. The second syllable tells us we can develop to perfection all the other stuff, love and compassion and kindness and generosity. So clearly, if that's the end result, it's obvious. It tells us the method. We need to learn to know how to distinguish between attachment and love, anger and compassion, the unhappy stuff and the positive stuff. It's really obvious, you know. And this is a unique approach to Buddhist psychology. The unique approach, actually. So if it's true we can get rid of what's called attachment, and it's true we can develop to perfection something called love, we had better know the difference. And how do you start? But anything, you've got to first know the definition of a teaspoon, the definition of chocolate, the definition of a carrot. You will not get your soup if you can't. So what's the definition of a neurotic state of mind? And what's the definition of a virtuous state of mind? Because then we can begin to understand bodhicitta. Well, the Buddha's clear approach is that all the neurotic states of mind, all the unhappy ones, all the fear-based ones, we talked about this yesterday, you know, they have this characteristic of being deeply disturbing, deeply painful, the very having of them. But this other crucial characteristic they have is that they're actually based upon these emotions, anger and fears, all these emotions. They're rooted very deep down in our mind in misconceptions, conceptual stories, you know. So then a neurotic state of mind, like attachment, its key function is to embellish. Anger, its key function is to embellish. So anger embellishes the ugly components of a person. We know that. They look so, when you can't stand a person, they look, every bit of them from their head to their toenail is ugly looking. We kind of know that. We just take it for granted. And if we're totally attached to somebody, we know from the tip of their hair to their toenails, they are divine. We know this. So this is a function of this is a key function. We can sort of know it every day, but we don't join the dots. We don't give it power, you know. So the key function of the neurotic states of mind, their key energy is they're disturbing, they're very painful. But their key function is to mislead us, to lead us up garden paths, to not be in touch with reality. So this is a lovely analogy. I use it all the time. The whole of Buddhism can be described in terms of developing the two wings of the bird, you know. You've got the wisdom wing and you have the compassion wing. So bodhicitta is the compassion wing. But let's get clear the wisdom wing first, because the wisdom wing is like junior school and high school. You've got to do junior school and high school before you get to university. And bodhicitta is definitely university. So you've got to get some work ready first. So with the first level of the first job is to begin to sort ourselves out, to begin to distinguish between the neurotic states of mind and the valid ones. Why should we do that? Because the neurotic ones make us miserable. Guess what? They make us suffer. Guess what? They're horrible. They're painful. They're awful. And they lead us up garden paths and cause us to make dumb decisions and cause us to do any harm that we do in our lives, you know. So who wants that? We're sick of that. So we've got to lessen those and grow the goodness. So the consequence of this is what the Buddhists call renunciation. Sounds kind of funny word, but renunciation is you giving up suffering and its causes because you're fed up with suffering. This is the wisdom wing, the beginnings of it. So what is the consequence of this? Already you'd be a more stable person. You'd have more equanimity. You'd have less anger, less attachment, less extreme, less depression, less anxiety. There's literally there's no question. This is the methodology. And this is the result. You become a more marvelous, contentful, full person. But the crucial point is that you'd also be clearer and you'd be less disconnected from others. So we can see right now, when we're full of attachment, you're completely obsessed with just those people you're attached to. You can't stand another group of people who don't do what you want, and they're called the enemies, the other group, the people you can't bear. And 99.9% are strangers, and you couldn't care less about them. So it's really a distorted way to see the world, Buddha says. It's normal. Monkeys do it, dogs do it, but it's really painful. So one of the consequences of having a lot of attachment, a lot of anger, a lot of depression, a lot of anxiety, a lot of jealousy, we can't see past our own noses. So we're completely isolated. We feel completely lonely, or we feel completely angry. We're always blaming somebody, pointing fingers, always depressed. I mean, we know these words intimately, but the consequence in relation to others is our discussion here. The consequence of all this for ourselves is we're totally miserable and we make a mess of our relationships and we don't see the world clearly. So then we start hearing about, in the compassion, when Buddha says we've got to have love and compassion for every sentient being. Excuse me, every sentient being? Don't be ridiculous. It's like a demented idea. We can't even imagine it, So we can't even begin to hear what he's talking about on the compassion wing. Forget bodhicitta, which is like the top end of it's like the end result practically of the compassion wing. It's not even possible to begin to understand that until we can understand what love and compassion mean. And we can't begin to even think about love and compassion or even begin to try and practice it until we've got some semblance of clarity in our own minds, some sense of equilibrium, some sense of reasonableness, some less neurotic, less depressed, less angry, less jealous. There's just no way in the whole world. You just can't do it. It's not possible. To hear that Buddha says we've got the potential to have love and compassion for every living being without exception is like a demented idea. It's like, excuse me, it's just too much, How can you go there? Well, that's university. When we understand this, then it'll make more sense to us to get to the start of junior school. And junior school, we don't even look at our minds yet. Junior school is control your body and speech, please. Have nice behavior. Don't kill, lie, steal, jump on the wrong partner, etc., etc. Harness your verbal and physical energy, because that's what's making you miserable and you're harming others. Then you have the luxury to go to high school, the second level of practice, and now you can start to be your own therapist and sort out this mess and see what's causing you the suffering, and indeed what's causing you to be separate from others or to only love a certain group. Then we can begin to comprehend this concept of love and compassion. It's kind of powerful. I mean, so let's look at love and compassion. So, okay, what's bodhicitta then? What's its relationship to love and compassion? It's the end result. I mean, there's different stages of practice. We look at this packaging of teachings that Tsongkhapa uses as the three principal aspects of the path. Well, remember the end result of this path, is Buddha. So the first level, junior school, is called renunciation. You're giving up suffering and its causes. Who's suffering? Guess what? Yours. So it's all about you. And that's the wisdom wing. Next level is bodhicitta. That's the next level of realization. And the final level of realization is you get emptiness, wisdom. Finally, you complete the wisdom wing, you realize emptiness. So the bodhicitta is the culmination of the compassion wing. There's many, many stages of development we have to get to bodhicitta. So what are they? So what is bodhicitta? So okay, it's really got two characteristics. One is the crucial point about it is when you've got this bodhicitta, this awakening thought, it's an outrageous level of mind. It's like what we'd think of as a saint. It's like, it seems like impossible, like too high. It's the two main characteristics when you've got it, when you've actually realized it. There's many characteristics, but the two essential ones are the only thought in your mind every second, this is where it sounds insane. The only thought is to benefit others. Whoever's in front of you, that ant, that dog, that pedophile, whoever, your only yearning, your wish is this incredible, you have this unbelievable connectedness with others. And every second is only the wish to benefit them. And then the long-term goal, right there at the same time, is you must become a Buddha as quickly as possible, because their suffering is so unbearable, and it's only then that you'll be qualified to help them. So, I mean, this sounds like insane. Maybe we have that for our precious baby. Maybe we have it for one person, if we're lucky. And it doesn't last, you know. So to think that it's a possibility to have this spontaneously, naturally, continuously, without a break for every being in the universe sounds like science fiction, if we look at these words very carefully. We love to read spiritual things. We love to read these amazing texts. We're so moved by it. But when you take the word seriously, you stop in your tracks, you know. I mean, they say one of the criteria of having, one of the criteria of having accomplished this bodhicitta, which is the end result of this, is the culmination of this next level of practice, is there's no longer the thought of I, meaning, no, you know you're I, you're not stupid, you don't think you're, I mean, I'm Robina, I'm not Roland, I won't get confused, you know, not like that. But there's no longer that thought of the normal, self-centered, fearful, unhappy, separate I, which is utterly, totally, and primordially natural for every single being in the universe. That's what being Buddha means by being a samsaric person. So of course, our modern psychology and our neuroscience, this makes sense to us. But this, as soon as you say to if you go to a therapist, even I joke about it, but I say, if you go to a therapist, would you please give me methods to get rid of all ego, all fears, all neurosis, all attachment, all anger forever, and to have infinite love and infinite compassion for all beings all the time? I think they'd be quite worried about you. And I'm really not being sarcastic. There's no concept like that in our psychology. There's no concept, there's no goal like that in psychology, therapy, and indeed there's no view in neuroscience. So of course, because it sounds like religion, we put it into the way up in the sky somewhere. Yeah, you kind of cross your fingers and hope for the best and pray, you know. But this is exactly the point that Buddha's making from day one all the way through his path, in his understanding of what the mind is, that this is the potential of every mind. We hear the words, you know, everybody possesses Buddha nature. So what does that mean? It sounds so sort of whatever, it sounds peculiar, we don't get it. What do you mean every mind possesses Buddha nature? What it means is every mind, every consciousness, and the Buddha would say there are trillions, humans are a tiny percentage, dogs have a mind, they're all, the term in Tibetan is mind possessor. So all mind possessors, and there are trillions, naturally, Buddha says, he's found this himself from his own experience, naturally possess this potential, their mind, that's its true nature. It doesn't mean we've been a Buddha in the past and have lost the plot. It means we have all got the potential. The nature of mind is such that delusions can be removed and virtues can be perfected. That's the word Buddha, remember? And that, of course, what we have to do if we're studying Buddhism seriously and trying to practice it, is really powerful to study some of these words in the text, to try and get some kind of, to see the logic of it, not just sort of cross your fingers and hope for the best, but to see the logic of it in the explanations. And as we know in all the Buddhist literature, it's dealt with extensively. The nature of mind, what it is, how it functions. And that gives you great courage and great confidence, because we certainly don't feel like that's our potential, do we? We do not feel like that at all. So it's really powerful to read about it, and to listen to the yogis who've experienced it, and to see the examples. I mean, every time we see the Dalai Lama, we can't say with certainty he's a Buddha. We can't tell, we're not clairvoyant, but it gives you great courage and confidence when you see his behavior, and you listen to his story, and you hear about his history. He would seem a pretty powerful example of this stuff. So it gives you confidence. Well, if he can do it, wow, so can I, you know. So, okay. Bodhicitta then is the culmination at a certain stage of your practice, next level of your practice after the wisdom wing, where you, and it's the result of lots of other practices. And this is, so mainly it's the result, the essence of it, of unbelievable love and unbelievable compassion. They're not equivalent. It's the result of unbelievable love and unbelievable compassion. So we can, you know, we can see in the Buddhist view of the mind, and we know ourselves, we look into our lives and look at the world, there are many, many, many positive qualities that we have. And right now with COVID-19, we're seeing so many reports of really exceptional kindness, exceptional compassion, people going out of their way to reach out to others. It's very inspiring. So we understand these things. You know, the Buddhist idea, he's not some creator who comes along and makes up a bunch of stuff and then sort of squashes it on top of things. What he is telling us is he's seeing reality. And then so we can see in our own life, in our own mind, there is love, there is compassion, there is empathy, there is generosity, there is patience, there is forgiveness. So these are our virtuous qualities. So in the first stages of practice, we have to harness the servants of our crazy delusions, which is our body and speech. And at least you stop killing, lying, stealing, jumping on the wrong partner, you know, and doing demented stuff with your body and speech based upon your mind, your delusions. They're the ones that are running the show right now, running rampant, you know, they're the ones that cause us suffering. So the first stages of practice are to harness this energy, and that's pretty powerful practice. Now we have the luxury to go to the compassion wing because our mind is more stable, our behavior is more stable, we've lessened our own neuroses, we've grown our own contentment, we're much more fulfilled. Therefore, it's more easy to see, oh my God, we're in the same boat here, you know. So now we begin the next stages of practice on the compassion wing, where you continue the job of working on your mind. That never changes. All the way to Buddhahood, that's the job you're doing. That's the constant job. Ridding your mind of delusions and growing the virtues until you've completed the path of Buddhahood. This job never changes, but now the emphasis is hugely different. In the first stages of practice, in junior school and high school, the first and second scopes of the Lam Rim, the wisdom wing, you are the beneficiary, because the Buddha says we're driven at the moment by our ridiculous attachment and fears and dramas and jealousy and depression, and we make a mess, you know. So we've got to harness our body and speech, the servants of our mind, and that's living in vows and doing purification. And then we look into our mind, we start to do shamatha, we start to go into the mind and begin to distinguish the neuroses from the virtues. This is the major job. Be our own therapist. You are the beneficiary of this. Do not doubt that for 1 second. And you need to want to be, because you're sick of suffering. So of course you still have your life with others. They're going to benefit from your presence. You're the main beneficiary of not killing and not, for example, not killing. But guess what? As Lama Zopa says, all the rats and roaches will have a party. Could you leave them in peace, you know? But the main emphasis in the wisdom wing is you're the beneficiary. It's all about controlling your body, your speech, and your mind, getting rid of your suffering, your rubbish, developing your renunciation of your suffering and your causes of your suffering. Now this prepares you, qualifies you to see, oh my God, we're in the same boat. So you keep moving, working on your mind, but now the emphasis is different. You're still lessening delusions, you're still growing virtues, but it's in relation to how to help others. The first level of practice, it's called the ethics or the morality of restraint, refraining from harming. Here it's the ethics and the morality of benefiting. This is the major difference in the compassion wing. And so the culmination of the compassion wing at this point is this outrageous attitude, this bodhicitta, you know. So, okay, so how do we develop it? This is the point. What are the things we have to do to develop it? Well, as we know from the Lam Rim, there's these series of techniques that have been cultivated over the centuries, coming from India, you know. And one of them is called the 6 causes and 1 result, and one is called the exchanging self for others. This more radical, much more radical, more dramatic method for accomplishing bodhicitta, and the one that's favored by all of our Tibetan lamas, the most marvelous practitioners. And all of these have got their source going back to Shantideva, to Atisha, etc., 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 you know. So as we know, there's a series of techniques. We have to start with a certain view, and that's called equanimity. I think we didn't do that. No, we didn't discuss all this yesterday, did we? I get confused where I am somehow, because I can't tell I'm in San Francisco, you see. I mean, I can't tell I'm in Santa Cruz, can I? I'm in my room in Portland, so whether the people on the screen are from Zurich or, it's hard for me to tell, so I get confused who I spoke to last. But I think we didn't discuss equanimity yesterday, did we? We wouldn't have, no, we wouldn't have. So let's look at the techniques, the methods to get to bodhicitta. I mean, we can do this more precisely, or we can just talk generally, if you like. We can do both, about what you'd be like if you attempted to live with bodhicitta, you know. It means putting others first. It means putting others first. So, you know, you do your best, of course. It means that. But this is where it's so important. We can see, let's say at the moment, even you're overwhelmed by your own fears. Let's say you're sick right now. Let's say your husband's left you. Let's say you've lost your job. We all know perfectly well when our suffering is quite bad, it seems kind of a really mean, cruel thing to tell us to put others first, doesn't it? When you're feeling already squashed by life and overwhelmed and despairing. So this is why it's easier to say words like love everybody. It's quite heavy, you know. We've got to really take it very seriously. Take it seriously, you know. It's not that easy to do it. So when we understand that, we have to be reasonable. Let's say right now, let's say your husband has left you and you're overwhelmed by misery. You can't think of anyone else right now. You can't force yourself You can't, I mean, you can think of the meaning of love and compassion, but know that when you're a bit more calm, maybe you can give it a go, you know, you can read some small thing. But if some people who are brave enough, if they're really practiced and your husband's just left you, maybe you really are brave enough to have enough, you know, ability to think of others first. But it's a pretty intense practice. We can see that. And that's why some semblance of practice in the wisdom wing is absolutely necessary in order to even understand the meaning of love, you know. So let's look at these two words. Let's look at these two words. Forget to have the series, the techniques, but look at the meaning of these words. And this is what we must distinguish. This is crucial to understand, to distinguish between these and the neurotic ones. So the classic example, of course, is attachment and love. So attachment, so Buddha, as we know, as I've been describing, classifies all the contents of our minds, the thousands and thousands of thoughts and feelings and emotions, into three simple categories, you know. Those that are neurotic, I-based, fear-based, painful, disturbing, delusional, the source of our pain. Those that are valid, reasonable, virtuous, positive, reasonable. And there's a massive difference between these, which we don't often notice. But the more we understand these definitions, the more we look into our lives, the more we can see the difference in our own mind and in our behavior, and indeed in other people, you know. So attachment, as we know, as far as the Buddha is concerned, practically in the Four Noble Truths, it's the main cause of our suffering. And this is a big shock to us. Who would ever thought that, you know? So we have to know what that is. And then we talk about love. So I can tell you, you know, say my boyfriend is John, and I say, I love John. I say, I love John. I mean, if it's like your boyfriend, you know? Well, what we're really talking here, especially in the beginning when everything's all perfect, what we're really saying is we've got 99% attachment, you know? And there's love there, definitely. So I think the way to look at this love and the difference between love and attachment is let's just look at it in the framework of this practice called equanimity, which is the foundation practice, the ground, the basis, the foundation practice of all these different practices that culminate in bodhicitta. The starting point is this equanimity. The starting point is equanimity. And let's look at what it is exactly, and then we'll see how we cultivate it. And this will make it very clear the absolute distinction between attachment and love, for example, or between anger and compassion. In other words, taking up the neurotic ones and the virtuous ones and seeing the difference. At the moment, they're like mixed in a big soup. We can't tell the difference, you know. And that's our job. Crucial, necessary job. Okay. So what's this equanimity? This is the first step. This is the foundation upon which we can build love, compassion, then what's called great compassion, and I'll discuss that, a unique characteristic of the compassion of the Bodhisattva path, which then finally culminates in bodhicitta. So the essence of all the good qualities, I think we could say, is love and compassion. And these have great meaning in Buddhism. So this equanimity, what it is, once you've accomplished it, once you've got it, would be this heartfelt recognition that friend, enemy, and stranger, and on this planet, there's no fourth category. Friend, and I'll describe, friend, enemy, and stranger. Heartfelt recognition that the friend, the enemy, and the stranger are equal to each other from one point of view. They're equal to each other from one point of view. They each want to be happy, and they each do not want suffering. So in fact, happiness and suffering for Buddha is one way of framing all his teachings. All his teachings, you could say from A to Z, are methods to stop suffering and get happiness. Buddha's saying every living being is driven naturally by the wish to not suffer and the wish to be happy. And the whole of Buddhism can be described in those terms. So it's got real meaning. So love is the thought, starts with a thought. May you be happy. So if I say I love John, when it's actually valid love, which is altruistic, which is in the second heading, the first heading is the neurotic ones, the second heading is the virtuous ones, and the third is like I call the mechanics, concentration, good memory, the stuff that we need to function properly. But the first and second are our job. So love then, if we correctly define love for the Buddha, it's under the positive heading. It's not a delusion. It's not a non-virtue. It is not delusional. It is not disturbing. It's a valid state of mind. And what it is, you start with a thought. This bare bones definition, it begins with a thought. And then, of course, you build it up to huge affection, you know, of habit. But it's the thought, may you be happy. If you see someone happy, you delight in their happiness. That's love. That's love. Someone says to us, your darling mummy says, when you go off and do something she doesn't like, or you marry an ugly boy that she doesn't like, she'll say, darling, whatever makes you happy. That's love. Love is may you be happy. It's a profound state of mind. And then we grow it hugely. It's delight in other people being happy. Now, compassion, it's not the flip side, is may you not suffer. You see suffering and you find it unbearable. It's empathy with someone else's suffering. So love and compassion are profound meaning in the Buddhist psychological model. They're this summary of all the good qualities. All the good qualities, you know. So love is delighting in someone's happiness. Compassion is wanting them not to suffer. So we're trying in this path that culminates in bodhicitta, all the different systems, starting with equanimity, is leading us to the development of incredible love, but for every living being, and incredible compassion for every living being. So equanimity is the secret to success. Equanimity is the key to success, to make it for all sentient beings. So let's look at that. Why? So remember, equanimity is the recognition that friend, enemy, and stranger are equal from this one point of view. They each are driven every second by the wish not to suffer, and are driven every second by the wish to be happy. So what we are trying to cultivate here is the wish that they all be happy, and the wish that they all not suffer. In other words, love and compassion. So what's the point then? Okay, the point is very simple. Let's look at the friend. Let's say I'm in love with John. My friend John, let's say. I'm in love with John, I'll say. And of course, I'll just say, I love John. And people won't say, well, how much is love and how much is attachment? Which is which? No one's going to answer the difference, because we conflate them. I assume all of it's love, you know, but I know I've got these very lovely feelings. Well, Buddha's saying what attachment is, and we learn about that back in high school, is this over-exaggeration of John's deliciousness, this over-exaggeration of his responsibility to make me happy, and the massive expectation and manipulation and control to make him make me happy. This massive assumption that it's his job to make me happy. That's what drives that attachment. And then it brings the possessiveness. So it exaggerates his deliciousness. It exaggerates his role in my happiness. It then causes me to manipulate, to expect, to manipulate, to control. And then I possess as mine. We know all these things. We really recognize them all. And it's rooted in fear and panic, the horror, the terror of not getting what attachment wants every second. So it's a horrific state of mind, this attachment. But, you know, it's hard for us to see, because fortunately it's mitigated by compassion. It's calmed down by compassion, or love. Sorry, love. Love is our saving grace. So we can see if a person's mainly got attachment. You look at this in some relationships. If there's mainly only attachment, then and there's not much love, it will not last. It'll turn into either anger and rage, and you'll kill the person, or you'll get bored and you'll get fed up and you'll leave them. But if there's any love there, that's what sustains a relationship. Attachment is the nightmare. It causes anger, jealousy, and all the others. Love is the source of the happiness in the relationship. It is the source of any reasonableness in the relationship. They are completely and massively and totally different. This is a surprise to us, because we just assume they're all normal. We give them equal status, don't we, in our psychology? Not like that. So in the wisdom wing, we learn to know this deeply. Now it's in relation to sentient beings. In the wisdom wing, we're dealing mostly with attachment to chocolate cake and attachment to money, trying to calm ourselves down. Here now, it's trying to lessen the attachment in order to want to have more love for somebody. But right now, we can see very clearly, we do have love. We do have compassion. But who for? The first group only. Pretty much, it's only the first group. This is the point. Now, the world takes this as normal. Monkeys do it, dogs do it, ants do it. We have close connection with certain people. They're labeled friend. Just for the simplicity of labels here. That's family, your beloveds, your partner, your poodle, the ones who are your group, your people, you know? They're the ones you have love for. You definitely do have love. I do want John to be happy. I do have compassion for John, but they're contingent upon attachment. So as long as he fulfills my needs, as long as he does what my attachment wants, and this is just look at the world, look at your life, look at the world, then I am prepared to love him and have compassion. We don't think of it so brutally, but this is exactly how it is. If he keeps doing not what my attachment wants, if he becomes impossible to live with, if he's unkind and brutal, then of course my attachment will wane and my love will, it depends on how foolish you are, and my love will definitely get less, unless you're a very special person. So then I'll leave the man, or I'll kill him, or kill myself, you know. So we have to distinguish between this. So that at the moment we have compassion and love, we do have it, or as Lama Zopa puts it, it's not stable. It's based upon compassion, upon attachment. So it's super limited. So we do have love for the friend. We do not have love for the enemy. I mean, just naturally, spontaneously, having these delusions, you do not want the enemy to be happy. Your ex-husband, John, when he just leaves me for a younger version, oh, may he be happy. You'd be a bodhisattva already if you said that. So we've got to aim for that, of course, but does not come naturally. Oh my God. And what about this? So what's the third category? Strangers. What are they? Well, it sounds brutal, but this is true. It's 99.99% of the universe. And how do I feel about them? I couldn't care less. Why? Because they've neither helped me nor harmed me. It's so clear. They don't touch my life. I can't even look at them. They're so boring. So the world is mostly strangers, isn't it? We have a few friends and we have lots of enemies, especially if you have iPads and newspapers and computers, so we read about the world every day. So there's millions of people for us to hate, you know, and get upset about. We can see that. So this is a normal world. This is the world. Buddha calls it samsara. And it's fraught and it's a nightmare. So we've done some earlier work in the wisdom. We calmed our body, speech and mind down. Now we really begin to really work more on this and start in relation to develop, to break down these barriers that ego grasping, that ego has constructed between self and other. That's what we're trying to do. So the starting point in the development of love and compassion for every being is this equanimity. So still, we haven't got to the logic of it. Right now, I do have love and I do have compassion, but for the first group only. So what are we going to, so once, in other words, what's my logic for having love for John? Because he makes me happy. What's my logic for having compassion for him? Because he makes me happy. He's my beloved. Of course I have compassion for him, we'll say. But that logic is too small, Buddha says. And this is quite shocking. Basically, what Buddha's saying is, I'm sorry, Robina, that's a bit limited, that logic. Just because John is kind to you, that's not the logical reason to want him to be happy. Just because John is kind to you is not the logical reason to want him to not suffer. This is shocking for us. Even so, what he's implying, now look at John when he leaves me. Now look at John when he leaves me. And now Buddha's telling me, I'm sorry, Robina, just because John has been unkind to you, that is no logical reason to not want him to be happy. And just because John has been unkind to you is no logical reason not to have compassion for him. This is so shocking, we can't believe he's saying it. Because this is the normal view of the universe. This is the normal view of ego. So this is quite shocking. And this is the first step. Forget bodhicitta. Come on, people. This is outrageous. But this is the basis. So what we have to do is, in our meditation, in daily life, practice it in the small situations. Don't wait for your husband to leave you before you practice it. This is a playing out every single day, you know. We're continually making these three distinctions. You're in a line somewhere, like when there's normal times and you're close to people and you're in a line at the airport and your friend comes along. Well, come on with me. No, I'll see you. Come in with me. If it's an enemy comes along, excuse me, mate, go to the back of the line. You'd never that's straight away. You can see we do that. We divide into friends, enemies, and strangers. And all our behavior is based upon that normal view of the universe. We never question it. So this is quite intense. This is quite powerful. So equanimity, the meditation, what you're trying to do is, and even as we're talking, think like this. Think right now in your mind as we're discussing. The person to the left, right in front of you. Imagine the person to the left in front of you is your beloved. If you have a beloved at the moment. Could be your poodle. Right in front of you, eyeball to eyeball, the person you don't like. And this doesn't have to mean, we mightn't use the word enemy all the time. It sounds heavy, but it's a suitable word for the person you don't like. And that could be the person at work, when we did go to work, who irritates us. It could be your next door neighbor who just annoys you. They mightn't have harmed you badly. You just don't like them. That's suitable to be called enemy, okay? Because why? Because of the object of aversion. The object of attachment is your beloved. The object of aversion is the object of is your enemy, the person you don't like, the person who annoys you, upsets you, irritates you, or even has really, really harmed you. It's a question of degree, isn't it? So they're the people in the middle category. The enemy, the object of your aversion, the object of your irritation, your annoyance, your upset. That's all aversion, not to mention strong anger. The third category, of course, is the strangers. And what's the state of mind there? So we've got attachment, aversion, and we have the third one, so the three poisons, as we know, are called ignorance, attachment, and aversion. But here, a function of this root ignorance is actually indifference, uncaring, couldn't care less. That's what we have for strangers. Think about it. And that's the vast majority of the planet. 99.99%. We simply don't, we don't care about, we might read the news and we'd be moved a little bit, but mostly, when you read about a country, you kind of say the name, you don't know where it is. You hear about a plane crash and you kind of read about it and see a bit sad, but you don't engage in it. I always tell the story of when I was reading the New York Times one day, my newspaper, and I read about, excuse me, I saw a heading down on the homepage on the iPad. It said 350 people die in a ferry accident in Tasmania. Well, I was born in Australia, right? I'm an American, but I'm still an Australian as well, So I read 350 people die in a ferry accident in Tasmania. Well, that's a state in Australia. So I went, oh no. And then I went to the story to read it. And then I noticed actually it said Tanzania. And I went, oh, it's okay. Do you understand? Because I don't know what Tanzania is. I had to think about it. I caught my mind. They were strangers, right? This is normal behavior. This is how we are. Because we've got attachment, aversion, and ignorance. This is the way the world is. It's three poisons. So this three poisons, which is Buddha's analysis of the mind, it pervades everything. All of our descriptions of how to develop love, how to develop compassion, how to understand karma, it's all there. This is a system that Buddha has. It's very, very fascinating. So equanimity then, and we're trying to cultivate. So how do we do it? Well, as I'm saying, think right now, person to the left in front of you, person who annoys you, don't like, or maybe your ex-husband who really has harmed you. Let's say somebody, or even let's say someone from 35 years ago whom you haven't forgiven yet. It's very powerful. A person you can think you don't like, who hurt you. Everyone's got these. Second, right in front, the friend in front, sorry, forgive me, to the left, your friend, your beloved. In the middle, eyeball to eyeball, the enemy. And to the right, a person whose face you know just enough to put them there, but they haven't touched your life. They've neither harmed you nor helped you, which is why we call them a stranger, which is why we therefore have indifference. This is the logic of these three responses, you see. So the thing is, if we hear this and we hear that Buddha is saying we're capable of going beyond all this, it's quite shocking because this is normal. The world is like this. So therefore we think it's normal. So, we should be embarrassed that, we have made up these labels. Because this is the point about equanimity. And this is what's hard. This is hard. If we get it, so what we're trying to do is get ourselves out of the equation. You look at these three people and try to see yourself as separate from them. Cut the connection, okay? Cut the connection. Because these three labels we know very well are these three people appear to us through our lens. And the lens is the degree that they fulfill my needs. So those who do, I'm attached to them and I adore them. Those who do actively don't, I have aversion for them and I don't want to love them. The rest, I simply don't care. So we should be embarrassed by how self-centered we are. This is a construction. This is a fabrication of ego grasping and the delusions. And the Buddha says this is not stable and we can go beyond this. So to have the wish to want to go beyond this, that's pretty powerful, We can look into the earlier stages of practice and we can say with certainty, I'm sick of anger, I'm sick of depression, I'm sick of anxiety. We know we're fed up with that. But to actually think, and you want to get rid of that, but to actually want to love every being, to want to have compassion of everybody, it sounds exhausting. So it's pretty powerful to even aspire for this, That's why when we hear the holy beings like His Holiness or like Lama Zopa, who just never stops talking about compassion, like at this level. And you have to deduce that that's where he's at because he never stops talking at that level. It is exhausting for us ordinary people, So equanimity itself is, forget love and compassion and great compassion, bodhicitta, just getting equanimity, getting some confidence in the logic of it. And that's why it's so important, these types of meditations, they're not just gooey, close your eyes and hope for the best and get some feeling of, I love everybody for about 3 seconds. And then there's an annoying noise outside and you forget all about your love. It's got to be stable. And how you get that, in these meditations, we're using logic to argue with ego's misconceptions. So it's quite rigorous, you know. Ego is very tricky. It needs to be argued with. So we have to argue with attachment, argue with aversion, argue with ignorance. This is really true. This is how then you get some stability in your recognition that it's true. These three people, from their point of view, are equal from one point of view. They equally want to be happy and not suffer. We have to prove it to ourselves, make it a stable understanding, not a gooey feeling, not a feeling. We're describing using logic, you know, there's no question. And that's not easy. So how do you prove it? It's very, one way, one little analysis is really easy to prove. It's just obviously true. And so let's just have the three people in front of you, but just now, but swap the roles. Imagine now you're looking at your friend, and they're looking at you, and you can see by the way they're looking at you, they think you're divine. They adore you. They're smiling at you. You know, if they wrote a description, they'd write all your beautiful qualities. They really love you. We know we may be fortunate to have some people who love us like that, okay? You know, when they look at you, they're smiling. So what are they seeing? Look their eyes. What they're seeing is friend. What they see is beautiful. What they see is a beloved. That's what they see. That's the picture they see. Now look at your enemy, the person like your boyfriend you've given up, the person you rejected, the person you have harmed. Think about that. They're looking at you. They can't stand the sight of you. Look at them, especially if you have harmed them, even if they think you've harmed them. They blame you for their suffering. That's very common. But look how they're looking at you. Look at their eyes. They're looking with daggers at you. You know, if they wrote a description of you, you'd be the most horrible person. And that's what they're seeing, a horrible person. We know this. We have this every day in our lives. Now look at the person, the stranger in front of you. You haven't touched their lives at all. They can't even look at you. You're so boring because you haven't affected their lives. They see a boring, indifferent person, do they not? We know this, and you know from looking at people that are looking at us, we know how we know this is true. So what I'm getting at is you for 1 minute are the beloved friend. The next minute you're this revolting enemy. The next minute you're this boring stranger. Now, this is my point. Listen to that. You know perfectly well that's not how you think about yourself. This is their projections onto you. You just feel like yourself. Let me ask you the question. When your beloved is looking at you and they see friend, let me ask you a question. Do you want to be happy? Yes, please. Do you want to not suffer? Yes, I do not want to suffer. You know it's true. Now, your enemy looking at you daggers. And I ask you the same question. Do you want to be happy? Yes. Do you want to not suffer? No, I don't want suffering. Now, the stranger looks at you and you're a boring person. And I ask you the same question. Do you want to be happy? Yes. Do you want to not suffer? No, I don't. Well, that's friend, enemy, stranger. You're identical every minute. You're not friend, you're not enemy, you're not stranger, you're you. And every second you want to be happy. And every second you don't want to suffer. You might have harmed that person. You might be kind to that person. And you might be indifferent to the other one. But that does not have any effect on your wish to be happy and your wish not to suffer. We'll just swap it over and that's them. It's so clear. But we don't like to think it like this because, especially if the boyfriend has left you, your father has been mean to you, the boss did fire you, the next door neighbor was unkind to you, join the universe here. We've all got people who've been mean to us. As soon as because we're feeling so hurt, and look at it, we're feeling hurt. They did harm you. I'm not even pretending. They did harm you. We can guarantee it. Everybody has that. So look at our hurt, our pain, our resentment, our anger, our broken heart. So then I hear, but Robina, he wants to be happy. He wants to be happy. He doesn't want to suffer. The first thought we have is, what the hell are you talking about? He doesn't deserve to be happy. Look what he did to me. It's too painful for us to hear it, isn't it? And this is something really simple to be proved. So this is really hard to even hear something that we can see is true. So we've got to get past our projections. And that's what we're trying to do with this equanimity, trying to get ourselves out of the equation. This is already huge, So how do we practice this every day? Easy. Every time, not so much these days. Well, maybe in your household, particularly in your household, if you've got a few people living there and you want to kill each other 1 minute. I mean, this is every second we can practice this. So we're trying to prove logically that the person who is kind to you, the person who is mean to you, and the person who is neither, that they're the same as each other. They want to be happy, they want to suffer. So already this is massive. It's huge to get to this one, but we've got to first prove it intellectually. This is not a joke. Then you've got a basis for practicing it in daily life, you know. And one of the biggest mistakes we make, I think, when we think of meditation, when we think of compassion meditations, we think you're supposed to close your eyes and have some big feeling and tears come. This is just superficial. This is artificial. This is really unstable, you know, these meditations, we're using logic to argue with egos and misconceptions, to get some confidence in the truth that the person who's kind to you, the person who's mean to you, and the person who does neither, that they want to be happy and don't want to suffer equally every second. And that these three labels are, even though it's true they're kind to you, even though it's true they harmed you, and even though it's true they do neither, what we're doing here is not using that as the basis for our wanting them to be happy and not wanting to suffer. We're getting past that. We're going beyond that. They did harm you. They were kind to you. They did do neither. They're facts. So we've got to go beyond that and see beyond those labels, that in their bones, just like you feel when you're the friend, enemy, and stranger, you're exactly the same every second. So it's quite tough, this one, but it's got real logic to it. It's very powerful. And this becomes the foundation upon which we can now begin incrementally, step by step, to grow love. And then what they call, and then compassion. And then and now there's a particular level on the Bodhisattva path. Let me describe these now. You can call it great love, great compassion. So what are they? This is the unique characteristic of the Bodhisattva path, you know, because the goal, as we know, of the Bodhisattva path is to become a Buddha. That's the goal. That's your end result. That's where you're graduating. That's your aiming. So, love, may you be happy. Compassion, may you not suffer. Now, so great compassion is this extra level, this extra bonus level, and it's the unique characteristic of the Bodhisattva compassion. And it's the unique characteristic of the Bodhisattva. It's this extra one that, so compassion goes, oh my God, look at that suffering. Great compassion goes, what can I do to help? It's this, as His Holiness calls it, universal responsibility or personal responsibility. This is this powerful attitude. We have to cultivate it, of the Bodhisattva. And that's the unique characteristic. So if we were on the Theravadan path, the Hinayana path, if our goal was to achieve nirvana, which is already stupendous, beyond belief. If you'd achieve nirvana, you'd be the most astonishing, amazing, radiant, astonishing, marvelous person. There is no doubt about it. But if you want to graduate at high school, do the first stages of the Lam Rim, the Theravada path, if you studied in Burma or Thailand, that would be your goal. They say that all beings have the potential to achieve liberation. And some people go to achieve Buddhahood, but not everybody. Mahayana says we've all got the potential to achieve Buddhahood. So if you're on that path, you'd go through those same stages. You'd live in vows, you'd do the purification, you'd give up killing and stealing and lying, you'd develop renunciation, you know your mind, you get shamatha, you reduce the delusions, you get renunciation, you realize emptiness. And one life or other, you've perfected those realizations, you've cut the root of all delusions, you've realized your own nirvana, your own liberation. And now at the end of that life, you die and you do not come back because you're done, you're finished, you're out of here, baby. So, but before that, think of how you'd be in that life when you've accomplished this nirvana. You'd be absolutely amazing. You'd gone beyond ego. Grasping has gone. Attachment has gone. Anger has gone. Delusions have gone. So what's left? Only the virtues. You'd be incredibly loving. You'd be incredibly compassionate. You'd be incredibly kind. You'd be an amazing human being. There's no question about it. But this is the point. Your goal, life after life after life, before that, your aim, your goal is to graduate at high school, to graduate at the lowest and the second scope, to graduate at your nirvana. So that's your goal. So you program your mind with that goal, your motivation, get out of samsara. And then secondly, as you keep going, you lessen delusions and you get more blissful, more radiant, more joyful, more blissful, more blissful. And by the time you achieve that life where you've achieved liberation, you'd be this extraordinary being. But when you die, your goal and your bliss override your compassion, override your love, and you don't come back. Now, if you're on the Bodhisattva path and you're aiming to go to university and you're aiming to achieve Buddhahood, your goal is that. That's your goal. And you program your mind with that, life after life, bodhicitta. So when you've got this love and compassion and you activate this extra level of compassion, that it's my job to take away the suffering of sentient beings. It's my job to make people happy. It's like this sense of responsibility of the bodhisattva. They're like a mother. A mother knows her she knows her job description. She doesn't forget when her baby's there, you know, crying and starving. She doesn't forget that it's her job. She's not thinking, she has compassion, let's say, oh my God, my baby's suffering. But she's not thinking, well, who's going to save my baby? She's going to do it, you know. She knows it's her job. She never forgets. That's a bodhisattva. Their job description. That's what one of the criteria I said, in bodhicitta. Every sentient being is there. You know it's your job to help them. And you have the wisdom to know how. And you've got this great compassion. And that gives you, so when you die, you go through these same stages and you get to a point on the bodhisattva path also that you don't have to come back. But you want to come back. Your great compassion overrides your bliss and you come to another life again and you keep on moving. So this great compassion is a stupendously different one from compassion. And that culminates in bodhicitta. So I think you can ask me some questions now. Nearly 1 hour. Please ask me some questions. Any old question about these points. Anybody at all. I don't mind. Nobody.
I have a question.
Who is talking?
Bob.
Hang on a second.
Yep.
Yes, Bob. Please talk to me.
I found in doing some of these practices, it's much easy to just say, may all sentient beings be happy. And
yes. Yes.
But when you attach a specific individual to those categories, it makes the practice so much more difficult.
You're so true. It's just so
more rewarding, actually, over time.
That's right, Bob. It's so true. It's so true, isn't it? I mean, and that's why we love, I mean, it's not as if it's marvelous. We want to read these prayers and have these aspirations and say these words. But when it comes down to putting our money where our mouth is, it's really full on, isn't it? There's no question. And that's why it's so important to get right on the earth with these things and know that it's not just having a gooey feeling. There's really hard work to do to chip away at all the misconceptions, isn't it? And that's why if we get it right down to earth, saying your nice holy prayer in the morning, and then you just meet your wife in the kitchen. You got to work on it, don't you? I mean, this is the point right there in front of us. That's why it's so important to bring the stuff on the earth, and then we can get very humble about it and see really how profound these teachings are.
Make it real, make it practical.
That's, Bob, this is exactly the point. And this is, without that, it's just fantasy words. It's just nonsense, you know. It's got no stability whatsoever, you know. And that's why I think of meditation, when you sit there and meditate and have a nice feeling about people and have a few tears, that's not love and compassion. That's just that's a nice feeling to have, but it's got no stability whatsoever. We've got to do the hard work day by day. It's such a good point, Bob. I totally agree with you. Absolutely. Hello, Anjani. How are you? Happy to see your face. All you people, Emily, no talk, no questions. You got a question, John? Castello, John Castello, you got a question? No questions? Okay. Nobody? You mean I've got to talk more? Huh? What, Roland, no questions? What do you think?
No, there's one question from the chat, Venerable Robina. I should read it to you.
Terrible sound, Roland.
Sorry. I muted someone else who had unmuted, but I think that this is the question I was asking, is what Jeremy was asking in the public chat.
What's the question?
So he says, if you put others first and don't expect anything in return, even if they mistreat you.
I didn't hear it, Roland.
Okay. So Jeremy asked, if you put others first and don't expect anything in return, even if they mistreat you, first question is that right? And second question is, how do you be practical and not get yourself hurt in that situation, or is that the point, to take on fully the suffering of others in that way?
No. This is why I'm trying to stress the necessity to do the earlier work first. Because the simple point is, Jeremy, if we're still at the point, which is your question indicates that we haven't done much work on our own mind. We've still got attachment and neediness and anger and jealousy and depression and anxiety. And excuse me, join the universe here. Not to have those things is a pretty advanced person. So we are a normal person, which is like that. Then to even, it's almost like it's not possible to do what you just said, and that wouldn't be the goal. It's like you're not capable. You're not even in junior school yet. It's like not possible. That's where it's so important to know where we are at. So if you and I had this relationship, or let's say you're in a relationship, that could be with your boss. It can be anybody. I mean, you're fearful and they're brutal and they harm you and they're mean to you, or people at work unkind to you, or whatever it might be, and you're fearful about it. You feel like a victim. You get hurt. You've got lots of attachment, a lot of neediness. We've got to start sorting ourselves out first, and we even might got to maybe make the decision, I'm going to get the hell out of this relationship. I mean, if only when you're more advanced, that you've stabilized your mind, that you can even make the luxurious decision that when a person is mean to you and really genuinely make a proper practice and you take the blame. That's profound. We've got to know what we're capable of, Jeremy. We're going to know otherwise this stuff really is confusing. Your question is so reasonable, because that's the implication is we're normal people for whom this would be ridiculous to do that, So it's a high practice. In other words, the person who's really qualified to do it properly is the one who's already controlled their body, speech, and mind, and got some sense of real renunciation and some sense of incredible self-respect. And that's the point. That's the point. So we have to know where we're at and what we're capable of. I hope that makes sense. We can try these things. We have to know the logic of it, though, because otherwise we hear it in a completely mistaken way. We hear it in a completely mistaken way, like we're supposed to suffer, we're supposed to just get hurt, we're supposed to allow a person to brutalize us. None of that is, and that's not what's being said. But bodhisattvas would, this is the point, because they're more qualified. When we start to really look at the bodhisattva teachers, I'm saying things that are fairly reasonable here. This is already outrageous. But when you actually talk about what bodhisattvas are like, that just sounds to us like insanity. They actually would prefer to be in a relationship with a person they didn't like. They'd prefer to have problems, because they're so advanced in their wish to rip out ego. They're happy to greet every opportunity. I mean, it's so advanced, So we've got to know where we're at. So maybe one person in a particular relationship, if you've always been the person who's been quiet and been, you've got to maybe speak up. But it's really a minefield. We've got to know the stages of practice. We've got to know what the delusions are. We've got to know what we're trying to accomplish. It's really a minefield. And there's a very specific way that Buddhism talks about it. I hope that's useful, Jeremy. Are there any other questions? Roland.
Yes, thank you, Venerable.
Yes, good. Oh, there's Jeremy. Okay. Was that
Hi.
Yes,
that was helpful.
Good.
Yes, it was.
Great. I'm happy.
If I could let you know too, I was a student of LPP for many years, since 2007.
Oh, where
I
were
was
you?
in prison. I was in prison for 31 years in California.
Okay.
And I just recently got out 8 months ago.
Oh, I'm so happy for you. Amazing.
Yeah.
You're doing well.
Yes. The adjustment's hard sometimes, but
You're in the universe here, Jeremy. Where are you living now?
I'm in Atlanta, California. I moved in with my my dad and brother.
And they're happy to see you?
Oh yeah.
I'm very pleased. I'm so happy, Jeremy. You just keep moving, honey. You just keep going. And don't give up. I'm so glad you're out of here. So you're doing another kind of crazy. What's all the
Yeah. Oh, I want to thank you for answering my last question too. Some months ago on one of your other chats, I was blessed to see your teachings. One of the things I had a problem with was my practice was inside prison, and all my brothers. I missed that. Remember that? And you emailed me too.
That's right. I remember.
Yeah. So I'm regaining motivation and getting a different perspective.
That's right. In other words, you got to adjust. You've got to adjust the new conditions, isn't it, Jeremy?
Yes.
Just keep moving, honey. Don't give up, okay?
Nope, never.
Good. Thank you, Jeremy, very much.
Thank you.
Okay. So now there's more questions. Where were they? Roland. What were the questions, Roland? There's several there. Roland, what are the questions? Roland, what are the questions?
No other questions in the chat yet.
Oh, okay. It says 11 here. There are 11. What's that mean?
11, I'm not sure
I
what you're
think
looking
there are
at.
11 in the chat. There's Joan. What's this mean? Okay, this messages from you and things. Okay, so then, okay, so I need to talk more. That's the plan, is it? I think so.
Question for you.
Where are you? Okay, good. Oh, yes, Samantha. Hello, darling. Talk to
Hi
me.
there. I'm in Santa Cruz, and I'm
Good.
very glad to be joining you for the first time.
Good.
I've been studying Buddhism for a couple of years, so I consider myself quite a beginner, and I am wrestling with so many different options for meditation.
Yes.
And I'm doing Tara practices right now, and I just did a medicine Buddha puja with Amy Miller because I'm dealing with a very sick mother. And I know that I really need to start just calming my mind and doing the calm abiding. And then I hear you talking about the equanimity practice. And can you give some direction for beginners? Because it's
I understand. I understand.
other more, where to start.
See, that's where, that's where, Samantha, that's where, you've obviously, you would have, if you've been saying these practices, you've been hearing about this thing called the Lam Rim and these different stages. So my feeling is, at the moment, okay, if you're studying anything, like you're studying music or cooking or anything, you have to know where to begin, don't you? You've got to know what level the different instructions are. So right now we're talking instructions that are quite advanced, but the point is, it doesn't mean we can't try them. But the point is, so the fundamental starting point would be to recognize that we're driven by all this ridiculous stuff, that you're sick of the suffering. So the very first level of your practice, this is junior school level, and this almost doesn't sound like a practice. It's not even technically a meditation, but it's a serious daily practice to really watch our body and speech like a hawk. In other words, have good discipline, have good behavior. But this sounds kind of like your grandmother tells me that. Come on, I want to do something that Buddha says. But it's the first step. If we can't begin to harness our mouth, and most of us might not go around raping and killing too many people, but if we can't control our mouth even, then how can we start to look at our poor old mind, How can we start to look at the attachment or the jealousy that drives those words? So this is why the first level of practice presented in this junior school, high school, like I'm talking, is really a sense of recognizing you want to begin to have the discipline of controlling your body, controlling your speech. And that at some point, you would even then look at Buddha's instructions. He's got this little list of 10 don'ts. Or at least if you live your life with the intention to not kill, not steal, not lie, this is real serious practice. Don't think it's not. Do not think it's not practice. You mightn't even sit down on your bottom and do anything yet. That's a really fundamental starting point. Then what happens, let's say a person decides they're going to become a Buddhist formally, so they'd formally take refuge. That's your next step. And they'd formally take the 5 lay vows. And that's a stupendously powerful practice. So then within that, you then start a little practice. And so you can start with some shamatha, with concentrating on your breath. But that's necessary. Of course it is. But, you've got to also, given that we're not meditating up in the mountains 24 hours a day, most of us have got busy lives. So you've got to choose the practices that, based on what you've heard, that have the most power at different times. So you can look into your little recipe book and you do the medicine Buddha one day because it's got a benefit. You can do the equanimity one day because that's a particular thing that you need. You've got all these recipes, you've got all these tools in your toolkit, so you can try different ones because you try them at different times. But you can still have a fundamental daily practice where you take refuge, you do a little bit of meditation, you might do Tara one day, and the evening you do the 4 opponent powers. You have your structure, but you put in these new bits, and as you keep practicing, you keep adding new bits into your toolkit. But you've got the fundamental structure: control your body, control your speech, control your mind, live in vows. This is the basis, and you move on from there, and gradually, and yeah, there's so much to do because there's a big toolkit. But once you understand the fundamentals, and then you can move on and gradually add to your toolkit. So be content with the fact that you're doing Tara and Medicine Buddha. This is amazing already,
Wonderful.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Darling.
Mm-hmm.
And listen to the teaching. That's really beneficial as well. It's necessary to hear the instructions. Like, you got to hear the recipes, and slowly, and it takes time. I mean, I swear to you, when I first heard the teachings from Lama Zopa, the Lam Rim, I really didn't have a clue I had no idea how to get hold of any of it. I'd hear a few words like karma. It was an intensive 1-month course. I was completely lost. And because of the Tibetan You know, it's so arcane. It's coming straight out of medieval days. It's coming from India in the past, and it's been very kept nicely in this really incredible structure. But it takes quite a while for us to hear it and to start to join the dots and see how all the pieces connect. So be a bit patient and humble with it as well. If you keep studying and you like this path, it'll slowly make sense, you know, but it takes a while, I promise you. But do anything you do every day, it's got to be root. There's no benefit in doing equanimity, you know, meditation for 1 hour and then going and eating 14 bits of cake and cheating on your boyfriend. You've got to sort of have some fundamentals of understanding the basics of good behavior first, which is the foundation. Then you bring in to see your mind. Then you can practice love and compassion. And even another way to put it is, let's say in a relationship with somebody, like Jeremy's example, let's say your sister, you've got a really, just say a difficult relationship with your sister, and you know that, forget about love and compassion, forget about giving her advice, forget about looking at your delusions. Just if you're going to speak to her, just make a vow, I will not say the wrong words. And you practice mostly your speech. Now, someone else, you can look at more at your mind. With someone else, you can reach out and forgive them. It all depends on your relationship, the time and the place. You can choose different ones at different times. Do you understand my point? And that's why you've got to know where you're at. You've got to know what you need and where you're at, you know. It's very important. Good. Thank you. So important point. Thank you so much. Who else is there? Any more questions? No? Okay.
You know, I have a question I could relay to you, Venerable Robina.
Wonderful. Go on.
So if someone is being asked to purchase ant traps for someone's house, let's say, how should we...
Stop, Roland, stop.
Yeah.
So a friend of yours sends you shopping.
Yes.
And asks you to do what?
Buy some ant traps to trap the ants in his house.
And you're a Buddhist and you don't want to kill, right?
Correct.
Well, you'd say no, wouldn't you?
I would, yeah.
Then that's the answer. The answer assumes where you're at. If you're not a Buddhist and your job is to kill ants, well, you probably do it. I mean, obviously, you're talking about a Buddhist who's taken a vow not to kill. They're asking you to go buy a gun and say, well, I'd really rather not if you don't mind. Simple, Roland.
Okay. I was relaying a question, let the record show.
For somebody?
Yes.
Somebody asked that?
Yes.
Okay, good. Oh, okay, so, okay, let's look then more at this. I mean, equanimity is pretty powerful. I mean, already it's a starting point, you know, equanimity is kind of outrageous. So again, look how you'd put that into practice in the daytime. It's already full on, you know. You just have to remember when, you know, it could be, especially if you're living in a house and the person's annoying you. And even like say, you know, you've got a couple of children, like you've got a grandchild or something, and you adore your grandchild. And then the next door kid, and they're playing. You can't stand that next door kid. It's so easy, isn't it, to buy into those stories? Your beloved grandchild and the ugly, smelly kid next door. We automatically, we fall into these categorizing almost instantly, you know. So the practice of equanimity is simply to go, okay, Robina, just give it a break. There's my divine child. There's a smelly kid. Get yourself out of the way. Stop defining each of them in your terms and look at how each of them, they've got a nose, they've got two legs, they've got a couple of eyes, they've got a couple of hands. They both want to be happy and they both want to be suffering. That's powerful right there. I'm not asking you to love them yet. I'm just simply just recognize that the smelly kid is just like your beloved in the wish to be happy and not suffering. Now, he might be a creepy kid. That even is not the issue here. That is still not even the point here. It's the recognition beyond all the other labels that what drives them both equally is their wish to be happy and not suffer. It's a really kind of primordially fundamental thing. But we are, everything for us is contingent. As long as they're kind and good, then I'm happy to want them to be happy, you know. Everything for us is so contingent on whether or not we like them, on whether or not they satisfy my needs. We can see this. It's quite shocking to see this. And again, remember, we're not discussing whether the person is good or not. That is not the issue here. It's a very specific point. We're trying to get past all these labels, all these projections, all based on what I want. Just to be separate. And that's where it's amazingly powerful practice. When you're reading the news, for example, let's say You know, say the politician you don't like might be called a person called Mr. Trump. Let's just say. Some people might like Mr. Trump, and that's perfectly fine. This is a powerful practice, but we don't want to think it. You know, just think, oh, well, Mr. Trump wants to be happy too. What we listen to this. Let's just say it now. Let's say you don't like Mr. Trump. Let's just say that. Now we say, well, Mr. Trump, let's say you like, you know, the latest leader that everybody adores is that one in New Zealand, isn't it? That Jacinda. People all love the New Zealand Prime Minister. She's so cute, you know. So, but you think it's Jacinda. You're happy to want her to be happy, aren't you? Oh, lovely Jacinda, she's so kind, you know, she's a good politician. I wish Mr. Trump was like her. And you want her to be happy. You see her smiling, you're happy she's happy. You want her to, you don't want her to get sick. You have compassion for her. It's easy. It's easy. And now we look at Mr. Trump. So what's equanimity saying here? Okay, we've got Miss Jacinda and Donald, all right? One's a friend, one's an enemy, let's say. So what we're seeing in Jacinda, she this is the point. There's two things here. We might be attached to Jacinda because we like her style, but she also might be a good person. We don't like Mr. Trump because he might be bad, but also we don't like him. There's two things there. This is what's powerful. We can't see the difference. We assume, but of course I like Jacinda. She's a nice person. What we don't realize is we're still seeing her through the lens of our attachment. We're seeing that she agrees with me. She agrees with me. Therefore, she's nice. We can't see the difference between her being nice and her doing my wishes. That's the piece to understand. That's the point. Now, with Mr. Trump, he might be naughty. He might be a liar. He might be selfish. But that's not the issue we're discussing here. We're discussing our anger that doesn't like Mr. Trump, that criticizes Mr. Trump. These are two separate things. This is the crucial point to understand. You know? Attachment to Jacinda seems to us logical. We can't tell the difference between attachment to Jacinda, which means you over-exaggerate her loveliness. She's such a good politician. Wow, amazing, amazing. That's attachment talking. But at the same time, she still might be a good politician. These two are separate because there equally might be another good politician somewhere else, but who has different political views from you. She might be equally as good as Jacinda, but she has different views. So you wouldn't have attachment for her. You'd have aversion for her. So we've got to make this distinction between our projection called attachment to a person who does what we want and an aversion for a person who doesn't do what we want. The person we're attached to might be a bad person, and the person we have aversion for might be a good person. So the issue here isn't whether or not they're good. The issue here is our attachment that exaggerates deliciousness and our aversion that exaggerates badness. These are really crucial, clear points to understand. And this work of distinguishing between the delusions and the virtues is what you do in high school. I hope we're communicating. So it demands a lot of rigor, a lot of analysis, a lot of honesty. And you can't have this level of clarity if you haven't got clarity about the definitions of these terms, if you haven't got this distinction between the neurotic states of mind and the valid ones, which is the way Buddha talks. It's a really quite a different model of the mind, you know. Then we can do the hard work. So the point is, when you say Mr. Trump wants to be happy, he's exactly the same as Jacinda. What we have to see is we're trying to get past who he is. We're trying to get past his bad qualities. We're trying to get past he's a bad politician. We're trying to get past our anger, and we're getting beyond all that to the heart, the raw drive in every living being is the same. And it's very hard. It's like a minefield to get to that bare bones recognition, you know. This is just equanimity. This is the foundation. Now, the next one, there's a series of techniques, isn't there? This next one, we're now trying to gradually begin to see, the next little step is to think about how all sentient beings have been our mother, which of course is hilarious to us because we're talking about past lives and everything. And the next little one is that the mother is kind. The mother is kind. So, but there's another on the third point here, there's 11 little techniques. There's these 2 styles. You can put them together into 11 little techniques. The 6 points and 1 cause, the 6 cause and 1 effect, and the exchanging self for others. These 2 techniques. There's 11 techniques to put them all together. So there's the third point. Then there's a 3A, is the mother is kind. There's a more profound meditation now. And what we're trying to do is we're gradually, with studying with equanimity, we're trying to expand our mind all the time, step by step, expanding our mind to encompass others. Now, this is a very profound one. This is this 3B, this 3A, the mother is kind. We won't go there. The other one is all beings are kind. That's the heading of this technique. So what's that meditation? What's this logic? Initially, it sounds hilarious. All beings are kind. Don't be absurd. So let's analyze the meaning here, okay? Well, the logic here is the idea of dependent arising. That everything is interdependent, you know? So the point here is this. If we look, since we're conceived, we will agree that everything that has facilitated our life since we are conceived in our mother's womb up until now, everything that has facilitated our life is the handiwork of sentient beings. Even my mother and father had to have sex, didn't they? Unless they did it in a petri dish for their egg and sperm to come together. Then I came out of and my mother ate food for, you know, in my case, 7 months. Most people say 8, 9 months. She ate food. What did she eat? Probably chickens and livers and fishes and carrots and vegetables. That 7 months of food went into her body and turned into my body. So this little body comes squirming out after 7 months, and we have ego grasping, thinking this is my body, this is me. Well, excuse me, where's my body? Right there. It's a mountain of fishes and tomatoes and carrots and potatoes and all the creatures who died to give me a body. Where's my body? What arrogance, you know? It's the all these countless sentient beings is what my body is, made up of the fishes and chickens. What else is it? Think about that. Then, from the second I came out of my mother's womb, the nuns took care of me, put me in the warm water and helped me. My mother fed me. But for that milk, I would have died. But for that warmth, I would have died. Up until now, everything, my clothes, my glasses, the warmth, things, the light, the computer, everything, every single tiny thing that we have in our lives, the food, everything, everything. Where do you think it came from? The sky? No, the work of sentient beings. This is scientific fact, but whoever thinks it, we don't. They say when you realize this one, they talk about the Bodhisattva in his cave who'd realized this one in his meditation. He was called always crying. He was the always crying one, because anytime he saw anything, all he could think of was all the people who made it or did it or cooked it, and he burst into tears, you know. This is really, I think we get this. My mother had 7 babies. Actually 8, 1 died. She had 7 living babies. And I know and I'm sure mothers are all the same, she kept every single thing of any of her children, every piece of clothing, every little shoe, every curl of hair, every drawing they did, you know. And when she looked at a stupid looking drawing that her little Bobsy, that's me, did when I was 5 years old, let's say, she just didn't say, oh, there's a boring little drawing. She could see her little Bobsy. That was the most precious piece of paper to her. That's this attitude. That's this one. Everything you see, this computer, the things, the food on the plate, the cake, the carpet, everything is the handiwork of countless sentient beings. This is scientific fact. It is profound to think about it. Now, the same point here. This has got enough. So when we say this, it's interesting. When we say the word kind, it sounds again kind of brutal. What we mean is a person is kind if they do what I want. So if you go to the cafe and you order a piece of chocolate cake and she gives you extra piece, extra cream and a discount, of course you'll think she's kind. You don't know that she's talking about this fat old Australian Buddhist nun making cracking jokes behind the back. I don't care. She's gave me what I wanted. So our logic of kind is very self-centered. This is, you do what I want, you're kind, baby. I mean, we should be ashamed of that. Here, it's got nothing to do with that. This is a curious one. We can't think like this. It's very odd. So when you say, what do you mean they're kind? You know, what do you mean? You know, all the people in China who made my iPad, they're kind. They're doing their damn job. What are you talking about, kind? This is the point. Is all these meditations are techniques that we use to open our heart, to go beyond ego grasping, beyond attachment, beyond self-cherishing. They're simply skillful techniques, methods of thinking that will break down ego's misconceptions. To the point, just like a beloved mother, when she sees that little drawing, she will just see her beloved child. That's the goal, the kindness of sentient beings. But for all these countless sentient beings, and countless sentient beings have died for us as well. Not even the ones whose flesh we have eaten. Never think that. Don't get all too holy because you don't eat flesh. I'm sorry. You know, a wheat field where they grow wheat, 20% for the bulls, for the meat eaters, and 80% for the vegans and vegetarians. And when in the off season, let's say, I remember reading one story in Australia, millions and millions of cute little field mice gather there in the off season. They sing love songs to each other, this fellow said. He had pictures of them. And what do you have to do to grow the wheat? 80% for the vegans and vegetarians. You slaughter the mice. But we forget that conveniently because we don't eat their flesh, you know. So just the fact of one grain of rice that you have that nourishes you is the product of the life and the death of sentient beings. This is scientific fact. This is profound to think about it. And it shows how hard it is to think about this, because we just see the food and we think it's our food and we eat it. We don't think about it, you know. So this is my point again. We're not discussing these people themselves being kind. The ladies in China did not think of me when they made my computer. That cook who made that chocolate cake might be a pedophile. How do I know? That's not the issue here. These are not the issues here. This is not discussing people's minds. It's trying to observe how we just, these are methods to cut our self-grasping, to cut our self-cherishing, to cut our to attachment. They're methods for us, skillful ways to think, to cut our misconceptions. That's the benefit. So finally, this leads to, I must repay their kindness. That leads to love. That leads to compassion. That leads to great compassion. And that leads to bodhicitta. Incremental, step by baby step, incremental, outrageous practice. People spend years in retreat doing these practices, you know. Very powerful. Yes, Roland, the light's on. Is it about you about to speak? No. Okay. So any questions about all that, people? Or thoughts or comments? No? I'm very quiet today. I'll go do all the talking. Come on.
I have a comment.
Good, Doris. Talk to me, sweetheart.
Well, I had to laugh when you brought up Mr. Trump.
Okay.
Because I've been using him as my aversion figure in
There
the
you go.
equanimity.
Good.
What a challenge.
Yes, it
What a
is.
challenge.
That's right.
But it's a real test, you know, it kind of tells you where you are.
Exactly, that's right.
But I have to put him away and then go to
That's
something
fine.
a little bit more manageable.
Exactly.
But I thought that was really funny.
That's
Because
wonderful.
I was thinking that at the exact same time.
There you go. How marvelous. There you go. Perfect. Now, these are really good examples. This is, and it's exactly the point that Doris made, you know, these things show our mind, you know, they show our mind. They show our mind. And that's why if we're really trying to be serious in this practice, this is where you see these two the distinct approaches of the wisdom wing, which is first controlling your body, controlling your speech, controlling your mind, getting some shamatha, watching your delusions, watching your mind and body speech like a hawk. That's the wisdom wing. This is the stuff you do to develop your qualities. This is the renunciations aspect. This is massive. Then you've got the compassion wing, where the emphasis is now others. Working on your mind all the way, that never changes, like I said, but the emphasis is different. So if you know, and again, like I was saying before, these are just toolkits. You've got a big toolkit here. Depends on where you're at. So, you know, one time when you read the paper, or you read whatever you read, the social media, or you watch television, or you do whatever you read. I read my iPad. You just, like I said before, Samantha's point is it's a question of where you're at. So if you're feeling particularly angry one day, and you want to shout and get angry with Mr. Trump or whoever the politician is when you read the news, and you're feeling very agitated, then maybe your practice is, this is the wisdom wing, this is the wisdom wing practice. You apply different stages at different times. Your wisdom wing practice is this. There's two things going on here. There's Mr. Trump, it's the outside, and then there's your mind. There's Mr. Trump, and there's your mind. So the wisdom wing practice is to first control my speech. So maybe your practice is to simply not say the words. This is so profound. It's like a joke. We just vomit out whatever we feel. And because we think he's a monster, we think we're right in speaking angry words. But what we don't realize, and this is the point the Buddha's making at this first level of practice, every time we speak, every time we act, every time we think, we're programming our mind with that. Mr. Trump can't hear you. No one else is in the house. Who do you think you are harming by saying those words and having that anger? Guess what? Yourself. But this shows how disconnected we are from ourselves, because we think I'm allowed to be angry because look how terrible he is. But what we don't realize, this shows how really disconnected we are from ourselves. And this is Buddha's fundamental point about karma, that everything we think and do and say first programs me with that. So it's like eating poison. How could you possibly want to do that? It's insanity. It's like, you know, it's like you're eating sugar, not thinking you're going to get diabetes. It's like demented. So the first level of practice is to be cautious about yourself for your own benefit. This is a profound level of practice. We don't really consider this one. You cannot do the compassion one if you can't do this. To control our speech, if in one day we can make sure no negative, angry, deluded, misconception, lying, speculative, annoyed, irritating speech comes out our mouth, that is a profound day of practice, I swear to you. The next level, so okay, when you're doing that, your main practice is shut your mouth. It's so hard because we just want to burst out what we feel, don't we? Now, the next level of practice, even more difficult, is now you observe the anger. But you see, we think I'm allowed to be angry. That's our big problem. And again, you got to see the distinction between recognizing that Mr. Trump's policies might not be good. That is a fact. That might be a fact. So I'm not saying it is. That might be a fact. That's fact. But anger is something else. Anger is, how dare he do that? Anger is an extra thing on top. Anger is this over-exaggerated criticism. Anger is, I mean, when you give up anger, you don't give up saying that's a bad political policy. That's fact. But anger, we can't see the difference, you see. So anger is an extra thing we add on top. So this next level of practice, control your mind. And even a better way to see it, to use your wisdom wing, you know, as your daily, in your practice, when you listen to Mr. Trump and you read the words, you will recognize, maybe you might be right. You will recognize he is lying. You might recognize narcissism. You might recognize anger, etc. You might be correct. But then you say to yourself, this is a powerful practice. And that's what I try to do every day. I then say to myself, two things. I recognize that. I recognize anger. I recognize lying. I recognize attachment. I recognize hubris. I recognize arrogance. I recognize self-centeredness. Guess what? I recognize it. So then I say, thank you, Mr. Trump, for showing me how not to be. That's practicing the wisdom wing. And this is super profound. Then you can afford to have compassion. Because why? Because if he is negative, he's harming himself. The real basis of compassion is because people are harming themselves. This is advanced, I tell you. Are we communicating? What was our schedule today? 8:30 or 8 o'clock to finish?
Yes, till 8:30, Venerable Robina.
Okay. Well, you people need to ask me questions now. I'm sorry. You have to ask me some questions. I want questions. Well, we have a 5-minute break and you can think of some questions.
I have a question, Venerable. Jimena.
Yeah, what's your question, Jimena?
How does it feel to love every sentient being? I can imagine it's because it's beyond my comprehension, I guess, but I would like to know.
I have no idea.
Okay.
What do you mean feel? I don't care about feeling. Okay, man. She asked many questions, so I'm a bit tough with her these days. What do you mean by feel? You got to understand the logic of it first, darling. Understand the meaning of it, the logic of it, why everybody's suffering. Everybody is suffering. Everybody is suffering, and that's the basis of love. Everybody is suffering. That's what you got to understand. And you got to understand how they're suffering and why they're suffering. Then you'll have love easily. That's the basis of love. You got to see that Mr. Trump harms himself. You got to see that pedophiles harm themselves. You got to see people who lie and steal and kill and terrorize and drop bombs are harming themselves. That's the basis of your compassion for them. That's the basis of your love for them. And when you know about your own suffering and your own delusion, and your own rubbish and your own attachment and your own nonsense, then you'll have compassion for yourself. Then you'll see it for others. That's my answer. So start with yourself, Jimena. See your own delusions, see your own attachment, see your own jealousy, see your depression, see your uncontrolled mind, see your delusions, see your behavior. Look at yourself deeply and practice the wisdom wing. Then you have a basis and understand karma very well. Study it and look at it. Then is a basis for seeing, my God, we're all in the same boat. And then love and compassion will come naturally.
Okay, thank you.
Good, darling. Any more questions? Any more questions? No more questions. I thought Jeremy said something. What were you saying, Jeremy? What was your question, sweetheart? You had a note there. What was happening?
Oh, yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, a bit crackly, but I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, let me see.
Yes, Jeremy. Ask me a question.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if it's a related question, but before I left prison, I was fortunate enough to receive practice advice from Mama Zola.
It's really,
It's
Jeremy, it's almost impossible to hear you. I think you might have to write the question down, and then I will answer it. Okay? Roland, can you write to Jeremy? Jeremy, I think it's best that you ask, or you, can you hear me, Jeremy? I think it's best you write your question down, darling. I really can't hear you. It's impossible. Write it down. Okay. Someone else. Anyone else? Questions? I'd love to hear some questions from you. Nobody's got any questions. Okay. Maybe we should finish then, if there's no more questions. What do you think, Roland? Maybe people had enough. Maybe it's too overwhelming.
Never enough. You know, I have a question, Venerable Robina.
Yes, what is it, Roland?
Building on the Trump thing and recognizing and having compassion for people who are clearly suffering. And
So start again. What? Start again. What?
On the Trump thing,
For example,
recognizing
a person
when
we
someone
don't
is
like. And why, if he's a harmful person, let's just say he is, I'm not saying he is, I'm just talking. If he is a harmful person, yes, and what compassion is based on, real compassion, genuine compassion, the Buddha would say, is that because we are harming ourselves as well as others. And you will never realize that in a million years until you've done karma in junior school, until you begin to realize, like I said before, when you're reading the paper and you're angry and you're shouting, that whom you're harming is yourself. Until we get that, we cannot have really powerful compassion for others. We'll only have compassion for the pussycat and the poodle, for the people we're attached to. We will never be able to understand, to have compassion for others, especially the harmers, until we understand karma for ourselves right back in junior school. This is absolutely vital. Is that your point, Roland, or did you have more questions from that?
There was more, but someone has another question that just popped up in the chat window.
Go on.
It says, Venerable, could you please list or describe some of the other of the 11 techniques to develop bodhicitta?
Okay, I'll list them for you just now. Yeah, so first of all, there's equanimity, which is the basis. The next one is it leads to this little kind of, this concept that all beings have been our mother, which means we've all got countless lives. Therefore, we surely have bumped into each other countless times. And I remember saying this to a mathematician. He said it was a load of rubbish. I don't know what his logic was, but I couldn't get it. Anyway, never mind. The next point is, you now think, there's two bits, 3A and 3B. The mother is kind. So the logic here is, if everyone's been my mother, then we use the mother as an example, which is hard for our culture because we think our mums are mean. The mother's a person who's nurtured me, taken care of me, loved me, looked after me. So then that means everybody's done that. So the one I said was more profound in a way, and I like that one, that all beings are kind because everything I have is a result of their hard work. So the fourth one is the conclusion. I must repay their kindness. Now the fifth and the others now come from the other system called exchanging self for others. So the next one, we're moving gradually towards making this paradigm shift of putting others first. So the next step is to think of the disadvantages. No, the next step is to think that now all beings are the same as me. It's the same as equanimity, but the difference is instead of thinking they're the same as each other, we now have all other sentient beings and realize they're the same as me in wanting to be happy and wanting not to suffer. And the next one is to look at the disadvantages to me of cherishing myself most, of putting me first. And the next one is to see the advantages to me of putting others first. And then we kick in with, really, this is where the practice of Tonglen comes in, where this amazing practice coming, I think, from Lungri Tangpa's text in the 10th century or 11th century or something, Atisha's disciple, from Tongpa's disciple. But he wrote these 8 verses, okay? And the 7th one mentions this, I think the practice of Tonglen must be from that. So this Tonglen is where you develop this great love and great compassion. It's where you do this, finally this shift occurs in your mind, which then kicks in and becomes bodhicitta. So Tonglen is this practice, giving and taking, it's called. Westerners love this. I'm very surprised. It's so amazing. It's such a high practice. So giving and taking, Tonglen. So the practice, very simply in a meditation environment, you can do it. You would just visualize a person. Think of it right now. You visualize a person. Start with a person you adore, your beloved child, your dearest friend, and they're suffering. They've got a headache, let's say, something simple. So what you do is you're using your breath in this meditation. So when you breathe in first. You breathe in and you imagine you're breathing in. This is the taking. You're taking upon yourself their suffering, their headache. You're not trying to get a headache. That's a big misconception. This is not a healing technique. It's another big misconception. This is a training for us to imagine that if we could, we would rather have the headache than my beloved. It's a very powerful attitude. So the attitude is, if I would rather have it than them. So you visualize breathing in this headache as yucky smoke that comes down. You can imagine kind of a rock at your heart or something where you chip away at your ego grasping. You chip away at your self-cherishing, your self-centeredness. And then when you breathe out this radiant light, and you breathe out all your good things, your health, your wealth, all your merit. You give everything to them. So the first one, taking upon yourself of their suffering, that's the practice of compassion. And the giving, that's the practice of love. So basically, like again, but this is rooted in being great love and great compassion. So regular compassion is, oh my God, look at that suffering. Great compassion is, what can I do to take it away? And even more like Tonglen is like a bonus on the top. It's like cream on the top that goes, you know what? I'll handle it. Give it to me. I'd rather have the suffering than you. So it's this outrageous, courageous attitude that I'm prepared to take upon myself that suffering rather than you. It's a profound practice. And that's finally what culminates as bodhicitta, where you've made that paradigm shift and now only others are more important to you. There's a summary, a summary. So I always think, I'll tell you this story. I always tell this story, Have you heard it before? Then fine, I'm telling you again. So our friend Harry, many people know this American fellow called Harry. He's Mary's partner. They're both meditators. And he's American. He was a monk. He's now a lay person. And years ago, he was at Courtin Monastery. And he was preparing to pack his pack and walk up the mountains to his cave. He's got a cave up where Lama Zopa's got a cave, way up in the mountains, 4,500 meters up, beyond Namche Bazaar. And he was heading up there to meditate. This was years ago. So Lama Zopa, he was there packing his bags to go. And then Lama Zopa said he had a dream that Harry would die. Well, first of all, the side comment is Lama Zopa doesn't sleep, so he couldn't have had a dream. He's just being humble. He's clairvoyant. And clairvoyance, by the way, is a low-level realization. You get that from getting single point of concentration back on the sutra path, not even on the Hinayana path, not even the Bodhisattva path. And that's been around for thousands of years from these Hindus. So you get clairvoyance at that point because you've accessed this subtler level of your mind. And that capacity to see the minds of others grows and grows. And without that, you can't get far in helping people. You know, you can't get far with helping people. You haven't got clairvoyance. You can't see their karma. You've got to have clairvoyance. This is a necessary prerequisite to really benefit sentient beings. So on the assumption he's clairvoyant, he can see that Harry was going to have an accident. He would die. So he tried to get a message to Harry. They said to tell him not to go. Well, Harry had gone, and obviously it's no mobiles in those days. So no cell phones. So he then asks, Lama Zopa then asks Geshe Lama Kongtrul, this amazing great yogi who spent years and years and years in the mountains, who lived in Vajrayogini's Pure Land. Lama Zopa. Can we turn off the sound, please? Roland. Mute everybody. So this is the story. Someone who was with him, one nun, must have told the story initially, and then I asked Harry to confirm the story, and this is roughly it. Because everyone who meets Harry says, oh, Harry's a bodhisattva. Everyone says, oh, Harry's a bodhisattva. Well, I wouldn't know. He's a nice fellow. But you can't tell. You're not clairvoyant. But when I heard this story, I figured, sounds like he's got bodhicitta. Sounds like it. So what happened is, he told me the story. He was walking up this path, up this very treacherous walking up there, and then one of the roads had been closed down. So they had to take this extra special, really treacherous, very narrow path. And people fall off there. The porters regularly fall off. They're carrying their 60 kilo packs on their backs, you know. So it's very treacherous. And he was walking up the hill with his own pack on his back. Oh yeah, and I told you, that's right. Geshe Lama Zopa said to Geshe Lama Kongtrul, Geshe Lama Kongtrul to pray for Harry. He's an amazing yogi who lived up there, who lived at Courtin. So anyway, Harry told me the story. He's walking up, and then suddenly he sees coming down very quick, very fast, very, very, very close, 4 Sherpas, 4 porters with their 60 kilos on their back. And then, these guys are amazing. We go on our trek. We're doing it again in October, hopefully, if it happens. I'm not sure it's going to happen. We've got a trek. We go up there, and it raises money for Lama Zopa's cave up there. It's a wonderful October, the Laudo trek. So anyway, when we go up there, we have about 11 porters, about 30 people go. These 11 porters, these kids with their flip-flops, you know, and they carry these 60 kilos. They're amazing. They're amazing, so special, so beautiful. So anyway, these 4 porters coming down, really treacherous, and just the slightest, I nearly got knocked over by a yak, fell down the cliff, you know. It's really easy to fall off. So Harry sees these 4 porters, and suddenly he says to himself, 4 of them, 1 of me. Okay, I'll step to the side. Now, in all these techniques where you go through these 11 techniques to get to bodhicitta, especially when you're trying to exchange self for others, you have to use all these absurd logical ideas that smash ego's conception that I'm more important than everybody else. So it sounds hilarious to say 4 of them, 1 of me, they're more important. It's a joke, you know, but that's one of the techniques. And so straight away, without anything, he said the thought. So clearly my thought, before we go even further to his next thought, you wouldn't say that naturally if you hadn't practiced it, if you hadn't sat in your cave or your room for day after day after day after day, week after week, year after year, contemplating these things until you finally get it. It doesn't just come naturally, you know. It was the first thought. Then the next thought he said, and if they knock me, I won't hold on. Now that's insane, right? That's what arose in his mind. So there's no way that would come naturally. They weren't his children. They were porters, they were strangers. So clearly he's done all the wisdom wing. He's done the vows. He's done the living in vows. He's done all the work on his mind. He's got the concentration. He's completely controlled his illusions. He's done the equanimity. He's done the mother one and the next 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 one. So that and then what happened? They knocked him and he didn't hold on and he's falling. He said his feet were on the ground and he said, he was falling, his pack was pulling him back, and he didn't hold on. And he said, I had a psychic vision of the entire fall, and I saw my body crash to the ground. And then he felt the hands of Geshe Lama Kongtrul forcefully pushing him from behind, and he reversed direction and fell onto the path. So that's no way in the universe would that happen naturally if you hadn't done years and years and years and years of practice. In exactly the same way, if you go to tennis and you see Federer, you know he just didn't turn out like that overnight. He worked for years, but we don't think of spiritual practice this way, you know. We think we're kind of born with it. No, it takes years of practice, all this stuff. Rigorous, deconstructing all the delusions, ripping them to pieces and developing incredible love, incredible compassion. Naturally. That's the proof of the pudding. And that also shows the power of the Buddhas. The holy beings have this power to benefit sentient beings. I like that story. That's a perfect, that's an example of bodhicitta. That's the culmination, okay? So that's how you'll be, Jimena. But get ready for it, baby. You better start practicing. All right? People? Any questions now? At 8:20. You're the quietest group I've had in the last 35 teachings since the last 6 weeks. I'll tell you that. What happened? What's this?
Could the spiritual coordinator read my my question, Venerable?
Okay, go on then. Roland, please read it. Okay, he will read it now. Good. Roland, read it.
1 second, let me find it. I didn't see it in the chat. Okay, here we go. So Jeremy says, I was fortunate to receive practice advice from Lama Zopa. When I was in prison, I had time to practice. Now being out, it seems life is so busy and I feel bad that I have slacked on my practice. Would that be a downfall from not fully following the advice? I was fortunate to have precepts from Venerable Tenzin Choki.
Well, I mean, it's contextual, Jeremy. If those instructions that Rinpoche gave you were like commitments or vows, and you broke those commitments and broke those vows, then that's serious. But if they're just instructions, general instructions that you try to do your best at, then with your good heart, you do your best. So you can't. But it depends. And again, thirdly, it depends on your mind. If you just decide, well, I don't want those boring old practices anymore, then clearly you're hurting your own mind. In each case, it's you hurting your own mind. But the other thing is, like we discussed already personally between us when you emailed me ages ago or recently, prison is one thing and now you're in the busy world. It's another environment. So this is where, Jeremy, it's so important to get very clear the instructions we've got. I mean, like, let's say you might go to the nutritionist and she'll give you 27 different foods you have to eat. But suddenly you get to an environment where you can't get those 27 foods. If you don't understand the basics of her instructions, then you'll make a mess. So as long as you understand the essentials, the basics of Rinpoche's instructions, and you have the aspiration to do them all over your lifetime and next lifetime, then you never lose that. But then you do them in a more slow pace, or you put some aside for the moment. You don't just treat it lightly, you treat it very seriously, and you try to get the essence of it, and you have a sincere wish to do them all. That's the real point, Jeremy. I'm sure you understand me. So don't get depressed about it. Don't get negative about yourself. That's helpful, Jeremy?
Yes, thanks. Thank you, Venerable.
Good, darling. Thank you, Jeremy. Very kind. Any other questions, Roland? Nothing?
Not that I've seen, no.
Well, I think we're just going to have to finish. All right, you people? I'm not trying to shortchange you or anything, but more than enough. And that Harry story is a good one to end on. So the thing is, it's like you've never heard of tennis, and we're discussing tennis here, and we don't even know how to hit a racket. So then we have a picture of Federer winning Wimbledon. Clearly, there's a big disconnect between where we are and where Federer is. But the whole point is to know it's possible. So it's enthusiasm. Well, I'd like to be like that too. That have the goal and you follow the path and you'll get there. So Tibetans have a lovely way of putting, we say practice makes perfect. They say nothing gets more difficult with practice. That's a very humble way to put it, isn't it? So we just keep practicing. We've got to be just like a bull, just never give up. But we despair, we get all neurotic, we get all excited 1 minute practicing for 14 hours and we give it all up. We're like ridiculous. Just be like a rock of Gibraltar and go one step at a time. But as I said to Samantha, the more you understand the whole path and where all the bits fit, then you know what you're doing, and that takes time. Just keep moving, people, having enthusiasm, knowing this is our potential for our sake and the sake of others. Jangchub, Semchub, Rinpoche, Ma Kie Panam Kie Guchi, Kie Panyampa, Me Payang, Gongne, Gongdu, Pavasho. May we never develop even. Okay, that's enough. That's enough. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Venerable Robina.
So I'll see you all on the 10th, isn't it? There's a few more days. I'll see you.
Sunday night
When we're going
at
to
6:30.
So we'll treat it, even though it's in the evenings, only once a day, we'll treat it like a bit of a retreat. We'll do a little bit of practice. We'll do a bit of meditating and like that, okay? All right, darlings. Much love to everybody. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Everyone.
Thank you, Venerable Robina.
Bye,
Thank
sweetheart.
you.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Good night.
Thank
Thank you.
you. Bye.
Bye, Emily.
Thank you so much. Nice to see you. Oh, hi. Hi.
Hi, Daddy.